I'm asked that question a lot. What's my favorite beer?
LNS.
Moondog Ale.
The Ohio City Oatmeal Stout.
It's a tough one.
Elliot Ness.
Commodore Perry.
Burning River.
Evan Fitzgerald.
Burning River.
LNS.
The Independence Ale.
The Edmund Fitzgerald Porter.
Lake Erie Monster.
Dortmunder is probably my favorite beer to drink and to produce.
As soon as we walk in, oh, here comes Mr. and Mrs. Dortmunder. It's just a great beer.
So from the very get-go, when we started our small brewery, we started with a full complement of high-quality people that in turn produced a high-quality beer.
You know, when we say handcrafted, we're not lying. It's one of the few things we have left, which I think is great. And there's a lot of guys here that like the fact that it's made here, and they like to be a part of something like that.
That's what's great about Great Lakes. The beers that we do bottle, there's such a variety to them, we can appeal to any palate.
Working here at Great Lakes, it's been one of my favorite places to come. I was a regular here before I was an employee here.
Feels good, knowing that you work for such a place that actually cares about the environment as well as the people around it, So it's a good thing.
This right here is the beer garden. Heated floors and a lovely fireplace.
And it features a retractable canvas roof that can be open and closed as weather permits, a radiant heat floor, a radiant heat fireplace, and a full wall that is formed completely from straw bales. With all these components, it takes about $8 a day to heat the entire beer garden, which is phenomenally inexpensive considering the size of the space.
Oh, we are really one of the pioneers when it comes to sustainability in this community.
Cleveland is an old industrial town which is in a rust belt transformation right now, that potentially maybe even a green belt.
We want to go from a take, make, waste company to a take, make, remake.
Our logo represents the three main ingredients of beer: the hop cones at the top, crisscrossed with the stems of barley, and then water, which is not only the main ingredient of beer, but also our area's a valuable resource. The three waves also represents our triple bottom line, and we have a financial bottom line, which most companies address, but also we have a social bottom line, which means we invest in the community through various nonprofit organizations, and we have an environmental bottom line. And with that, we attempt to reduce, reuse, and recycle not only our raw materials, but our energy. And the collective effort then means that our economic, social, and environmental practices achieve a sustainable yet profitable business.
These are the vegetables that I forage for the restaurant. You could see the beautiful produce, the tomatoes and the peppers and the corn and the cabbage.
Okay, yep, this is Pine Size Farm. It's an organic vegetable, flower, and herb farm, which is done exclusively for Great Lakes Brewing Company. Hill Farm has, I'm pretty sure they have over 100 acres down here. And of course it's in the Cuyahoga Valley, so it's a real fertile area. Produce-wise, I'd say just pure produce that the restaurant uses would probably be close to a quarter of it came off of here this summer. These were cucumbers in the spring, and we harvested 1,000 pounds of cucumbers. That was the first major harvest we had. We knew that we were going in the right direction. We've had the managers down here, we've had the head chef down here several times, we've had the servers down here, we've had the bussers down here, and doing some hands-on harvesting, planting, just to bring people down here, we felt like would reacquaint them with the great outdoors. If you're sitting in your Great Lakes one night having a beer and you're curious about where that food came from, you could get up the next morning and drive down here and wander through and see the same food that was served on your plate last night, growing organically.
We try to make sure that the food is as high quality and as unique as the beers are. So that's pretty much where we set our benchmark, and it's a pretty high mark, but all the work we do with the menu kind of leads towards that.
I can't even tell you how many tons of grain they use each week in making the beer, but it's an enormous amount of spent grain. So that's a waste product which they're interested in trying to find a beneficial use for. Being such a great compost, we thought, well, let's bring it down, let's just start experimenting, and let's see what we can produce.
A lot of the barley from the brewing process goes to making bread and pretzels by an artisan baker. Some of the low-fill beer, porter beer, ends up as a chocolate chip porter ice cream. All the cardboard, all the plastic, all the glass, all the office paper is all recycled. Well, actually, that's what we did with these old buildings. These were built in the 1860s, and we recycled them. The Fatty Wagon is run on straight vegetable oil. So it's very clearly a take, make, remake. With that success, we've now then embarked on a path to have all the beer delivered from our semi on the same straight vegetable oils. Now we have 2 vehicles that are doing that. In fact, we feel very strongly that we've given our customer base another reason to support our company.
So it just makes good business sense, helps the environment, and we all benefit.
We're known for a lusty, full-bodied interpretation of just about every beer we do, and that comes from the city, which exemplifies those qualities.
There's 4 basic ingredients that go into all beer, and that's barley, hops, yeast, and water. So a lot of people find this a big surprise, but water is the biggest component of beer.
All of it comes from Lake Erie, and it's great brewing water.
Mostly starts with barley, and it's malted barley. So it goes from the fields basically to a maltster. Basically, we get it, it's already malted.
In the Dortmunder Gold, we'll use a base 2-row malt and a small percentage of caramel malt to give it a balanced flavor and a gold color. In the Elliott Ness, we'll use a base 2-row, Munich malts, and some caramel for color, and that gives it the raisiny flavor and the darker amber color. In the Edmund Fitzgerald, we use dark roasted malts. This small percentage will give it the dark color and also that roasty flavor that you taste.
Brewing process is 4 different stages, which corresponds to the 4 vessels we have in here. This is the mash tun, which is the first step of the brewing process. This is where the ground malt is mixed with water and heated to certain temperatures to allow the enzymes to convert the starch, which is present in the grain, to sugar. And when it is heated up, it has the consistency of thinner oatmeal, and heated up to 150, then 160 degrees, depending on what the brew is, and allows the enzymes to do their work. This is the second vessel in the brewing process, called the lauter tun. This is where the grain is pumped from the mash to the lauter. The lauter almost functions like a coffee filter. Grain is pumped onto the top of strainer plates, where the grain stays on top of those plates, and hot water is sprayed over the grain, and the liquid is separated from the malt, just like a coffee filter. The liquid that is extracted is called wort, W-O-R-T. It's all the sugar from the malt and color and all the extract that's derived from the malt. When this process is finished, when all the extract is pumped to the kettle, the next vessel, the spent grain is augured to a spent grain silo. From there, it is taken by a farmer and fed to cows and pigs, and a small amount of it is used as a substrate for mushrooms, which are served in the brew pub, and some of it is also used for pretzels and barley bread. This is the third vessel in the process, called the brew kettle. This is where the wort is pumped from the lauter to the brew kettle. Here it is boiled for an hour and a half to concentrate the wort, and also hops and spices are added in some of the beers. Spices are added to the Holy Moses and Christmas Ale. Holy Moses, it's chamomile, coriander, and orange peel. And the Christmas Ale, it's ginger and cinnamon, as well as honey. Throughout the hour and a half boil, hops that are added early in the boil are for bitterness, in the middle of the boil for flavor, and at the end of the boil for aroma characteristics. This is the fourth vessel in the brew house. It's the fourth and final stage, called the whirlpool. At the end of the boil, the hot wort is pumped in at a high rate of speed in a centrifugal whirlpool motion. In the kettle, the proteins coagulate into solids, as well as the hot particles. All those solids gather into a pile in the center of the whirlpool. And after a half hour in the whirlpool, the hot wort is pumped off the side of the whirlpool through a heat exchanger, cooled down to either 50 or 65 degrees, depending on what beer it is, and then onto fermentation, where the yeast is added.
From the brew house, the boiling hot wort is sent down to the cellar. Here we add yeast to begin fermentation. And in the beaker you'll see a simulation of the fermentation that you see in the larger tanks. Here, yeast feeds on fermentable sugars in the wort, where byproducts would be carbon dioxide and alcohol.
We blend yeast with the wort from the brew house into the fermenters for about 2 or 3 weeks, depending on the style of beer. See, it's the cloudy beer. And this is a sample after filtration out of the bright tank, bright beer. And then it goes to the bottling area, or kegging.
This is the bottling line. My job here is to oversee the bottling of the beer. What I do here is make sure my bottles are sanitized before they get to the filler. Make sure the fill levels are correct once they go through the filler. Make sure they get to the labeler here, and make sure the dates are correct on the label. As we all know, bacteria likes hot, moist environments. Here at Great Lakes, we installed the HEPA filter and a hood which runs back to our bottle rinser. This system pumps refrigerated filtered air, which minimizes bacteria and extends the shelf life of our beer. The other choice is to pasteurize our beer, which cooks the beer at high temperatures and destroys bacteria. But this process runs the risk of burning off the beer's flavors and tastes. That's why here at Great Lakes we choose not to use this process.
It's not just Cleveland history that makes this beer great. It is quality, it is fresh, it's award-winning.
The concept is that if you make a full-bodied beer, you can get the inside track on imports, because imports can't touch the freshness factor that you can afford to bring to the market when you brew right in your own backyard. And when you ask what you attribute the success of the company, I think it all has to do with the values and always the obsession with quality. And I think that that's the way it should be.